All right, so now I'm going to show you how we solve story problems by following 4 steps. So first step is we annotate the problem, we underline it, we mark up the problem, and try to figure out what we know. Second step is we figure out, again, what we're trying to figure out in the problem. The next step is to draw a key with all of the relevant information from the problem. And lastly, we represent with labels, and then of course we're going to solve. So here's our problem today. Sadie collected 5 rocks. Danielle collected 65 rocks. Taekwon collected 30 rocks. Derek collected 3 times fewer rocks than Taekwon. How many rocks did Derek collect? Now already I know that this is probably going to be a multiplicative compare problem, but I'm seeing that it's 3 times fewer. So first I'm going to annotate the problem. Sadie, 5 rocks. Danielle, 65 rocks. Taekwon, 30 rocks. Derek, 3 times fewer. Then Taekwon, which is very important. And I'm trying to figure out how many rocks did Derek collect. So, great. Step 2 is I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to highlight what I'm trying to figure out. This is it. I'm going to just write FO for short. You may see a lot of your scholars writing FO, what they're trying to figure out. Or they may rewrite it also, what they're trying to figure out. Now I'm going to draw a key. This key, and we're encouraging all scholars to do this. We've been doing this since August, September. The key is just going to contain relevant information that's going to help us to be able to look back at the key versus going back to the story problem and deciphering all of the information. So my characters, we have Sadie. I'll just put an S, and she has 5 rocks. Just a quick jot. Danielle, I'm going to actually write off a full name because I have two people with the letter D, so I'll make it helpful. Just Danielle. And she had 65 rocks. Let's see what else. Taekwon, 30 rocks. Tai equals 30 rocks. Now Derek collected 3 times fewer rocks than Taekwon. So I'm going to just write Derek equals 3 times fewer. I'm going to just write that down. Than Taekwon. I also know that this times fewer is also going to be a multiplier. So I can just write also that my multiplier M is equal to 3 times. Most of your scholars, they should know what the multiplier is, and they should be able to help you out more with that. And lastly, I'm trying to figure out how many rocks did Derek collect. Great, so now it's time for me to represent with the labels. I also know that this is a multiplicative compare problem, so I'm going to be comparing 2 things. This last line, I know that Derek had 3 times fewer than Taekwon. So I know right now that I'm going to compare Derek and Taekwon. So in my key, I'm also going to write down those 2 things that I'm going to compare. For multiplicative compare problems, all scholars should always highlight those 2 things that they're going to compare. I'll even use a different color for this. So here we're comparing Derek and Taekwon. And I want to circle whichever one is greater. So let me go back to the story problem. Let me go back to my key to figure out which one is greater. So it says that Derek collected 3 times fewer than Taekwon. So if Derek collected fewer, that means that Taekwon must have collected more. So I'm going to circle Taekwon because I know that Taekwon is greater. So since Taekwon is greater, that means that Derek has to be less. So let me look back at my key to figure out what Taekwon had. I see Taekwon had 30 rocks. So as we said that since Derek had 3 times fewer than Taekwon, that means if Derek had 3 times fewer, that means that Taekwon must have had 3 times more. So now I'm going to represent with an equation to figure out how much that Derek had. I know that if Taekwon had 30 rocks, and if Derek had 3 times fewer, than Taekwon, then I know that I can do Taekwon of 30 rocks. I'm going to label this as 30. It represents Taekwon rocks. I'm going to divide it by my multiply of 3. This is the fewer rocks than Taekwon. And this is going to help me figure out what Derek has. I'll just go over that one more time. We knew that Taekwon has the most. Taekwon has the most. In order for us to get to Derek, or in order for us to get to something that's less than 30, we can do two things: subtract, or we can divide. Here we know that it's a multiplicative compare problem. It's 3 times fewer. In order for us to get an answer that's 3 times fewer, we're going to simply divide by 3. And if we divide 30 by 3, we're going to get 10. So I know that Derek's total rocks, to be very specific, I know that Derek collected 10 rocks in total. Let me just go back to my key to make sure that this makes sense. Derek collected 3 times fewer than Taekwon. Well, here's Derek, and here's Taekwon. And I know that 10 is 3 times fewer than 30, so that must make sense. Yeah. So I was able to annotate the problem, figure out what I was trying to figure out. I drew a key that helped me out a lot. And I had this representation with labels to help me to figure out and how to solve this problem, this multiplicative compare problem. I also noticed that Sadie and Danielle, here this is some information that's not really relevant. In some story problems, kids may have information that's not really relevant. So I was able to decipher through the problem and pull out the relevant information. They will have to do that also and figure out what they need to use and how it can help them to figure out what they need to figure out. Thank you.